Well, it's no accident that all three of us on stage are from IIT Bombay. Like most of you, I started my undergraduate journey at IIT Bombay. But unlike most of you, I also started my entrepreneurial journey at IIT Bombay, because I think many of you may know, some of you may know, or maybe none of you know, that my entrepreneurial journey actually started by setting up the Canteen Corporation of Hostel 2 of IIT Bombay. It turned out to be very successful, very, very small venture, but created a very large spark. And that led me to the US. I got my master's and PhD in Pittsburgh at Carnegie Mellon. I met my wife, Kathy, at Carnegie Mellon, and then that began my entrepreneurial journey in the US. And that has translated to the position that I'm in today, where I can actually do a lot of good for other people. All of us are blessed with the IIT DNA, and this special DNA has made us successful as entrepreneurs, as managers, as technologists in academia. This same special DNA that's made us successful in business or academia has also prepared us for success in philanthropy. And there are many reasons for this, because philanthropy isn't just about giving cash. Philanthropy is about passion. Philanthropy is about big ideas that can have large impact. Philanthropy is about forming partnerships with government and other foundations and NGOs. Philanthropy is about leveraging technology for massive scale. Philanthropy is about generating and measuring large outcomes. All of these are things in which all of us at IIT have important qualities that we can apply. And in particular, we could take these qualities and apply them to philanthropy anywhere. We could apply them in the US, we could apply them in China, we could apply them anywhere we want. But India has a very special need. And for most of us, our hearts belong to India, so we too have a need to give back to India. So it is a great match between India's need and our need to want to do something really good for India. If you look at job creation, India needed to create 50 million jobs in the last 5 to 7 years, actually only created 5 million jobs. Huge jobs deficit. We need to create 50 million jobs in the next 5 years. If you look at the history of our performance, how is it going to get done? We have a key role to play. If you look at healthcare, massive needs in healthcare, whether it's malnutrition in children, whether it's our life expectancy, whether it's the quality of life, whether it's the environment, huge needs there. If you look at education, I don't need to tell you how poor the primary education system is in India. And it's only because we have this massive filtering process that those of us who actually make it to IIT are able to succeed. But for every one of us who gets into IIT, 100 or 1,000 don't get in, and their futures are quite bleak. And it all has to do with a very poor education system. So the needs in India are great, and we bring a special kind of magic, a special kind of capability that, if I had to sort of summarize in 3 key qualities, I would say the first of these is that we are the best and brightest. Now, perhaps we don't deserve to be, but it is there nonetheless, all because of the selection process that I talked about. And because of the large scale of problems in India, the chaos in which solutions have to be found, there is a particular need for big thinking and the ability to achieve big outcomes. The second is problem-solving ability at scale. So the ability to do program management, the ability to do execution at scale, something that all of us from the IITs are very good at, is something that is needed in India whether it's to increase the scale of existing NGOs, whether it's to set up new philanthropies, whether it's to work in partnership with the Indian government, all these are extremely important. If you look at technology, technology is increasingly a force amplifier in philanthropy. So you can apply the concept of MOOC platforms to primary education or vocational education. You can apply today's chip technology to low-cost hearing aids and to eliminating the need for braille machines at all and just having talking books that are available for the blind. There are 1,000 ideas, all of them technology-centric, all of them ideas in which we from the IIT are well prepared to help address and execute at scale. So this combination of capabilities that the IITs have prepared for is exactly what philanthropy needs, particularly in India, particularly at scale. Now, if you look at the translation of that to the Wadhwani Foundation, many years ago, 10, 12 years ago, I made the decision that there are many ways to celebrate success, but perhaps the best way to celebrate success is by sharing the wealth that I was privileged to achieve with people less fortunate than me, and in particular, people that I don't know. So this means that my view of philanthropy is not about what you do for the family. Of course, you'll do that, or what you do for your community. You may do some of that, or what you do for your temple. It's really about the hundreds or thousands or millions of people who you don't know that you can help with your philanthropy. That, to me, defines the true spirit of philanthropy. So in this context, since there are so many different kinds of problems to solve in India, each of us has to pick our particular passion. And in my particular case, the passion happens to be for job creation. And the reason job creation is really important is twofold. First of all, job growth automatically drives economic growth, though India's history shows that economic growth does not necessarily drive job growth. Because in the last 5, 7 years, India's economy, GDP-wise, grew 40 or 50%, but job growth was 1 or 2%. So clearly, the equation does not work in India from GDP to jobs, but it certainly is true in the opposite direction, that if we help create jobs, GDP will absolutely go up. The second thing is, job creation, particularly high-quality jobs, is transformative for the families of the people for whom you create these jobs, because you're not only changing their lives, you're changing the lives of the future generations of their families, and in a sense, you're changing the whole social fabric in India by expanding job creation. So while all important initiatives have value, I just felt that this was particularly relevant for India's needs. So that is the mission of the Wadhwani Foundation. Our strategy is to try and do large-scale initiatives with high impact, partly by having our own team that can execute at scale, partly by forming partnerships with the Indian government and with state governments, partly by leveraging technology, partly by working with other foundations. So it's a whole combination of strategies that come together. And over the years, we've launched a number of large-scale initiatives, the first of which is the National Entrepreneurship Network. And the purpose of the National Entrepreneurship Network is to help accelerate first-generation entrepreneurship in India with the mission of helping launch companies, which in turn creates jobs. So 10 years ago, there were no colleges, not even IIT Bombay, that had a program in entrepreneurship. Today, thanks to the National Entrepreneurship Network, there are 500 colleges and universities with entrepreneurship programs. We've created an entire curriculum for entrepreneurship in India. We've helped create entrepreneurship faculty. There are about 1,500 to 2,000 trained faculty, where there were none a few years ago. We've helped to create a technology platform to connect entrepreneurs with sources of capital and with mentors. And we are expanding this model to a more localized model where we can actually create entrepreneurial ecosystems city by city and region by region. We train about 100,000 potential entrepreneurs a year, About 2,000 companies have gotten started so far. The rate of new company formation is about 700 to 800 companies per year. And if you stretch this out over the next 10 years, I think you can see the kind of scale impact that can be achieved. Similarly, a few years ago, 3-4 years ago, we started the Skills Development Network. And the purpose of the Skills Development Network is to help provide skills which are market relevant to millions of people, such that if they are skilled with those particular skills, there's a high probability that they're going to get high quality, sustainable jobs. So positions like nurses and nurses' aides, positions like front office clerks in the hospitality industry, cyber technicians, auto mechanics, these are examples where there are potentially millions of jobs available over the next few years. And we are helping, we are leveraging our capabilities with technology. So all our curriculums are interactive, web-delivered, mobile-delivered, very easy to deliver with facilitators in a classroom rather than actual educated faculty in the classroom. And our goal is to get to the scale of millions. We have a similar initiative in innovation because I feel that innovation is an important driver of the growth of small business in India. And small business is where much of the job creation in India happens. So to the extent we can do this successfully, hopefully millions of new jobs will get created. And we have initiatives including setting up a research center in bioengineering at IIT Bombay, setting up a research center in biosciences at the National Center for Biosciences in Bangalore. But most of all, we are working on a policy initiative with multiple Indian ministries to actually fund 25,000 innovation grants over the next 5 years between $25,000 and $500,000 each, very similar to the SBIR program in the US. And it has the potential to create a large number of jobs and also accelerate the growth of many Indian small businesses. So these are examples of what the Wadhwani Foundation does. We work very closely with the Indian government. We've, after meeting with Prime Minister Modi about a year ago, he agreed that the initiatives that our foundation was working on were very relevant to him and very aligned with his strategic thinking. So I asked what he would do in return. He said his ministries would act on it, and true to his word, the Ministry of Skills and Entrepreneurship and the Ministry of Social Justice have both signed MOUs with the Wadhwani Foundation to help accelerate the scale of our initiatives by 5x or 10x. And we have similar MOUs in, thank you. And we have similar initiatives in progress with the Ministry of Defense, Department of Science and Technology, and the Ministry of Small and Medium Enterprise. So the jury is out in terms of execution because an MOU is a piece of paper. It's better than not having a piece of paper, but the next 5 to 10 years will determine whether the Indian ministries are actually going to execute. However, to make it more likely than not that they do, we are setting up at Wadhwani Foundation expense a large program management organization to work with these ministries in the regions, in states, and where the smart cities are going to be and where the critical mass of Make in India is going to be. So we're actually helping to realize some of these dreams and strategies that the Indian government has because they're completely aligned with our own thinking. We are also expanding globally. The original intention of our foundation was not just to be India, but to use India as a launch pad and a test bed. So we've expanded our initiatives. This is our second year in Pakistan, in Malaysia, and Indonesia. And then end of this year, we hope to launch in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and Rwanda. And end of this year or first half of next year in the first couple of countries in Latin America as well. So over the next 10 years, as this journey unfolds, hopefully India is the core. Hopefully we expand at scale in India. Hopefully do this successfully with the Indian government. and then use that learning to also expand into a lot of other developing countries all over the world. All of us are in this room because we were privileged to go to IIT. All of us are in this room because we've been successful in our companies, in our careers. But careers change and companies change. The impact that we can have through philanthropy in changing the trajectory of people's lives and families and communities and the social fabric of India or other countries is everlasting. That's why I'm as passionate as I am about philanthropy. That's why I've made the very large commitments I've made to the Wadhwani Foundation. That's why I believe that to have long-lasting impact, philanthropy is the only answer. I'm committed to it, and so should you be. Thank you.
So if you have questions, I understand there's an app. You please
That's awesome.
Type your question, and I will get from the backstage. But before this data comes, I will begin with Bharat. So Bharat, I know you for a very long time, and I'm senior to you, although he's my boss. You created this, you're chair of the IIT Foundation, and you have created incredible motivation from a lot of people from IIT Bombay to give back. And I'm sure other IITs are doing a very good job, but can you tell me what and how IIT alumni can get involved with their alma maters?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question, and one that I'm asked frequently, and I'm really very clear and passionate that each one of us should get engaged with our alma mater and institutions that matter to us and that are near and dear to our hearts. And frequently the question that comes back is, I'd love to get engaged, tell me how. And my answer always is the same. I think the important thing is find a way to get engaged. You can be a visiting faculty, you can be a mentor, you can take a part-time professorship job, you can support startups by being a board member, you can fund startup companies, and you can fundraise, and you can certainly write a check. But the most important thing is to pick a cause that's near and dear to your heart and commit to that, commit to an outcome that you're looking for, and then work diligently towards getting that outcome. And I will echo what Romesh says. This is a fantastic group. We're all privileged to have had such a great education. And I'm very clear in my mind that each of you can do whatever it is that you would want to do. So pick a cause that matters to you and pursue it and make it a reality. Thank you,
Bharat. Romesh, I have a belief, as you heard earlier, the two companies, the AirGrab, they said we didn't have much money. Actually, the conversation happened, they didn't take the booth, they were advertising. So I said, why didn't you take the booth? He said, I don't have money. So I said, give stock. But they gave. Similar to the second company. And first of all, we want both of these companies great success, so Pan IIT gets richer. Anyway, is it necessary that you get involved in philanthropy at some point in time or certain wealth, or you can engage at any time? Can you tell the people?
Well, my feeling is the earlier you get involved with philanthropy, the more impact you'll have. Because philanthropy is a journey. It's about learning. It's not like there's some, magic answer or a magic bullet, and all you have to do is fire it, and, good things happen for lots of other people. It's a journey of developing your own interests. It's a journey of learning what all the obstacles to success are, because as I mentioned earlier, this is not just about money. You have to work through a lot of obstacles. To get these MOUs signed with the Indian government was like pulling teeth. After the Prime Minister said, let's go for it, and by the way, prime ministers don't always say that. So, you know,
Can I help?
there are lots of obstacles, and the earlier you start, the more you learn, the more you'll achieve, the more the kinds of partnerships you'll be able to figure out, more the ideas on how to leverage technology or, you know, other sort of amplifiers of your success. And since it's not about money, and money helps, you can help harness other people's money. You can help take an existing NGO and help bring them to scale. So there's so many different ways in which you can do it. I would say the sooner you get started, the better.
Thank you.
If I may
Please,
cut in with
please,
just
please.
one additional comment. I remember reading an interview of Andy Roddick's, and Andy Roddick and Andre Agassi are good friends. And Agassi was very involved in helping underprivileged children progress. And he recruited Andy to do it. And then Andy Roddick asked him one question. He says, Andre, would you have done anything different? And he said, yes, I would have started a lot earlier. So echoes, you know, your comment.
Okay. Bharat, we got a good flavor of what Wadhwani Foundation is doing. Can you give some idea of the areas you support, you're involved with? Not just financially, but I know a lot of other things you do as well. But can you share it with the audience?
Sure. You know, we thought about the causes that matter to us and that we're very passionate about. And by the way, in our case, my wife and I and our 2 children are all 4 actively involved. We're all members of the board, and we make every decision unanimously. That's a principle we follow. And it's a lot of fun doing it that way. So we decided that there were 2 causes that we thought are near and dear to our hearts. One is education, and the other one is entrepreneurship. And so we said, how do we have an impact in these 2 areas? And the way we started was we said, let's pick organizations or institutions in our within our extended reach and find ways to support them. So we supported our kids' school, you know, when they were doing a massive campaign. We did, you know, we've done a number of initiatives with my high school in Gujarat, where they wanted to extend the education program that they do in school to people who were not as privileged. So we created a kind of a mobile education program. In the immediate vicinities, wherever our company is involved, we have volunteers who will take on a cause. In India, it's always finding a way to serve underprivileged children, young underprivileged children, and provide them exposure to a world that they're not exposed to through education, through field trips, et cetera, because they have such a limited vision to expand their field of vision. Interestingly, our people chose a very similar approach, but with a very different group in North America and Europe, where our company is engaged. They picked kids who were from families where some member was incarcerated. And each of these kids lacked direction, mentorship, and was probably going down the wrong path. And by active engagement with these kids, mentoring them, giving them meaning, you know, helping them see meaning in life, and putting them on the right path. So that's what we did in the communities where our company is engaged. And then in the state where I went to high school, we've promoted a digital literacy program. So I think there are like 100 schools in Gujarat where there is an active 5-year digital literacy program where we have certain benchmarks of what we'd like to accomplish. And then schools where I was either actively involved as a board member or where I went to school, we identified very specific needs that we thought existed where our involvement, active involvement, would make a difference. So with IIT Bombay, we happened to pick an indoor sports arena. You know, I'm passionate about fitness, and I thought fitness plays a very important role in people's lives. I wanted young IIT students to understand that and have access to a really good facility. So we have that. I'm also very passionate about, I hope you guys used it.
It's an excellent gymnasium stadium. Is it?
Yeah.
Stadium.
It now has, so instead of having one badminton court, this has 6 badminton courts, can be converted to 2 volleyball courts, 2 basketball courts, and seating of about 1,500. There's a swimming pool next door, so it's a nice facility, an Olympic swimming pool. And then we wanted to do something in entrepreneurship, and we thought, IIT students are really smart, really bright. How could we make it easier for them to pick the entrepreneurial path? And so we started the Entrepreneurship Center at IIT Bombay. And along with that, we also picked a couple of advisors who had very successful track records in the US running entrepreneurial programs. IIT willingly embraced them, put them on the board. They actually went through a planning exercise for a year, and the program has got off to a flying start. So we're very pleased with that. The program is expanding, and my wish is that this becomes this helps students nurture potential entrepreneurs, helps them bridge from a student world to a workforce world, and helps them systematically evaluate risk and feel comfortable taking risk. And I also hope that over 100 other fine institutions in the country emulate this, and that will raise the bar for everybody in the country. As Romesh says, the country needs to generate 10 million jobs a year, and they're going to come from enterprise formation. So this is what we've done. And then I think the one thing I will mention is for entrepreneurship, there is an organization called Enactus, which is about a 40-year-old organization based in the heart of Missouri. And I happened to come in contact with them because they invited me to judge what they called a World Cup. So I went there, and it happened to be in Amsterdam about over 10 years ago, and I was fascinated to see young students who were competing actively in this program from Africa, Australia, Europe, Asia, US, so actively, interacting so well and bonding so well. And I had this epiphany that the best way that we can solve the world's problems is by getting countries trading with each other. And that drew me even closer to entrepreneurship. And we said, let's see if we can find a way to take Enactus to India. So 10 years ago, we formed Enactus India, and it's now quite active. There are at least a couple of hundred colleges in India that actively participate in this program. And very simply, what Enactus does is encourages college students to spread the message of free enterprise in their extended communities. And it is really transforming, because not only are they able to spread the message, but the change that occurs in these young people when they do it, the confidence they gain is just absolutely amazing. Walmart is a very smart company. When Enactus has its programs, Walmart is actually actively recruiting these students to become purchasing agents or analysts or something like that, because they understand the power of this. And to make this competitive and to raise the bar, these students first compete with each other nationally, and then the national champion of each country goes to the World Cup. It's a great program that I think we're pleased with its success.
So I have one question for both of you, and it's kind of a two-part question. That if at least as dumb as I am, whatever I've heard, is that both of you are encouraging entrepreneurship. Both of you are encouraging, people uplift themselves through education and entrepreneurship. So it's like the old Japanese say, give a man how to catch a fish rather than giving a fish. And that's a very, resonance here. How do you measure the success of your initiatives so that, okay, we gave the money, we created the program. Is there a way you build some sort of a matrix or measurement system or follow-up system or audit system that gives you satisfaction that your money is working for the mission? And I like both of you answer. Romesh, you go first.
So one of the core philosophies of Wadhwani Foundation is outcomes measurement. And we use the same rigorous approach to KPIs and metrics that Intel might use or that some other technology company might use. So as an example, for the National Entrepreneurship Network, ultimately, the single most important metrics are twofold. How many new companies got created? How many new jobs got created? Everything else is simply an intermediate metric. It's a means to an end, but the end is how many jobs, how many companies. So we clearly measure how many companies got started. We measure what the sustainability of those companies is. In other words, what was their situation in terms of revenue, number of employees at the end of year 1, at the end of year 3, at the end of year 5, so that longitudinally we can see if we are making progress. We measure the number of jobs created, we measure the different skill types of jobs created, and then supporting that, how many colleges are teaching entrepreneurship, how many e-clubs, how many students do we have in those e-clubs, is that number going up or down, is the level of engagement with the e-clubs going up or down, how many people have taken how many entrepreneurship courses, how many of them come back for the second course, the third course, the fifth course. So there's probably around 25 or 30 metrics that we measure for the National Entrepreneurship Network, but all of them feed ultimately into companies and jobs. Similarly, we have metrics in the Skills Network, in our innovation programs. And by the way, we've introduced this concept to the Indian government. So one of the things that the ministers that we were dealing with in the Ministry of Entrepreneurship was when we told them that through this public-private partnership, when we sign a memorandum of understanding, the metrics for measuring success will be the same as the metrics Wadhwani Foundation uses. Their faces turned white because they didn't actually want to be measured. And I told them, and Ajay Akela, the president of our foundation, who's here, told them that's the only way in which we will do a foundation, because we are not doing this for political reasons. We're doing this to actually achieve a particular purpose and an outcome. We have to be measured together. Ultimately, they agreed.
What's your technique?
I agree completely. Our philosophy is exactly the same. When we support a cause, we are very clear about the outcome we're looking for. We want an agreement up front with the institution we're going to engage with about the outcome we want and the time frame in which we want that outcome. And our experience is again the same. Institutions don't want to be measured. And we say that's the only condition under which we'll engage.
So are your both measurement system is protected IP or is available to others if they want to use it?
No, I think it's very simple. It's, what kind of outcome would you want? What defines success? And we sit down and have a conversation about what defines success. And then we say, if it's a 5-year grant, we'll say, okay, the outcome, the condition on funding year 2 is dependent on hitting year 1's outcome. Simple.
And we are giving our IP free to anyone who wants it.
So those of you who are motivated.
It's freely available. By the way, as I mentioned, we've just launched in the last year, 18 months, programs in Pakistan, Malaysia, Indonesia. Malaysia, Indonesia going well. Pakistan is difficult. We keep telling them it's an American foundation, which it is. And they keep telling us, but you do so much of your work in India, and your founder and benefactor happens to be an Indian, so what kind of secret plot is underfoot here? So we're trying very hard to work through the traditional suspicion, but all the IP is being given to them free. So.
I'll ask the next question, but Mr. Raj Shah, your phone is locked out, so I can't read the questions that audience has asked. So if you can come and unlock the screen so I can read it. But I remember one of the questions when he put this phone from the audience, and which was saying, which is better, and I'm giving from the memory, so probably, Annadan or Gyandan? That's the question from the audience. Which is better, Annadan?
Annadan or
food,
Gyandan, which
or
is better?
Gyandan? I hope that was the question, but if it's wrong, then I have to repeat the question when this gets unlocked.
Yeah, I believe in teaching someone to fish as opposed to giving them a fish. And even though
That was about the highest number of people asking.
That's a poor analogy for a vegan, but
The highest number of people ask that question, by the way.
And I've been rapidly forgetting my Hindi, but I think Gyandan is the right answer.
yeah.
Now I got this question, so let me make sure. The question is gone now. Where is that question? Oh, top question, right?
That's a tough question.
Okay, now the top question has changed.
People vote.
People vote. So here is.
Hey guys, this was a great system. I commend you guys for developing the system.
By the way, this was developed by Saket.
So it's a company called Calentech that volunteered.
And
Yeah.
is it another donation from a company that built this app and donated? Of course, they're going to keep the app ownership, but at least we have a free use for this.
But you could actually think about
Fantastic app.
think about marketing this with event management companies. There's an idea.
Fantastic app. So the question I have is, and again, I'll ask both of you since it's a common question, use of mobile technology to improve healthcare. Your opinion on that? I don't have to do with philanthropy, but there is some angle here. So, but why don't you go first?
You know, clearly that is the frontier, and you know, both underdeveloped countries and developed economies are both recognizing that, and that's probably the area of maximum business opportunities. I wouldn't be surprised if thousands of different organizations sprout up that address this field. It just makes so much sense to have that virtual interaction, instantaneous virtual interaction, take the place of what today is a very painful physical experience for healthcare delivery.
So I think there are two dimensions to addressing the critical healthcare needs in India. There's talent and there's technology. On the talent side, it's about skilling. Once you get past doctors, physicians, you know, people with MBBS degrees, and by the way, many of them have MBBS degrees that they shouldn't have been granted. But once you get to the next level, particularly nurses and technicians and so on, the state of affairs in India is quite bad. So Wadhwani Foundation, through the Skills Development Network, is focused on skilling in healthcare, but not at the doctor level, below that, in terms of nurses' aides, and technicians. On the technology side, similarly, there's a very large need. I mentioned a couple of examples: low-cost hearing aids, you know, low-cost devices for the blind, low-cost prosthetics, something similar to what Jaipur Foot has done so very successfully, but applied to other kinds of prostheses as well. And my younger brother, Sunil Wadhwani, who has built a great company as well. I mean, the only beef I have with him, sorry, vegan, is that he went to IIT Madras. But what are you going to do? But his foundation, which is independent and complementary to what we do, is focused on technology for healthcare through a philanthropic model, which means that they will be funding all kinds of new technologies and delivery systems. And as far as I know, the IP from those will be freely available to others to expand the network.
So the second question there are four, all have the same number of votes. So I'm going to, oh God, where did this go? Disappear. All right. I'm going to, thank God I have some memory left. But they all have got this four questions, same number of votes. And it's the one I think was a bit funny, but there's no harm in asking. It said, what's your reaction when you are stopping at a traffic light and you see a beggar knocking on your car window?
And you see who knocking at the car?
Beggar.
A beggar knocking on your car window. What's your reaction when your car is at the traffic light?
It's a very mixed reaction. There's I assume this is in places like Bombay or Delhi.
Yeah, I'm sure the person who asked it must have been familiar.
Very mixed, because on the one hand, you feel human compassion, you want to help the person, and given the position that we're all privileged in this room, it would mean it would be the easiest thing in the world to pull out 50 rupees or 100 rupees and give it to them. On the other hand, all the stories you read in India and in movies like Slumdog Millionaire, most of the beggars are run by gangs, and the last thing you want to do is encourage gang members to bring more innocent kids into the service of these gangs. So I think I end up doing it opportunistically. So if it's not a beggar in a full beggar sense, but someone who's selling bootleg copies of Cineblitz or Filmfare, I'll buy the copy and pay 500 rupees for it, even though he's only asking for 100 or 200 rupees. And if it's someone who just knocks on the window and just wants cash, I won't do it.
Sorry, but this was a question asked from audience. I have to be honest. How about you?
That's good. Yeah, you know, my reaction always is, let's think of a systemic way of eliminating this problem anywhere. Because, you know, begging is inhumane for anybody to do, and society just has to find a way to solve that problem.
As I'm not technologically savvy, being a finance guy, so I again lost the screen, but have a good memory with numbers. So the question was that if somebody from IIT, student, faculty member, or anyone, if they are interested in some of the initiatives that you are supporting, can they enroll to help? Again,
can they what?
Enroll as a volunteer to help. That's the question from the audience.
Absolutely, we'll take all the help we can get.
Same answer. Absolutely, we'll take all the help we can get. So,
and there's lots of work to do.
So I can give the monitor here. Our time is up, but I'll ask each one of you last question, which is a question come your personal comment. First and foremost, I want to thank both of you. I know how busy you are and how much in demand you two are to take the time and come here, spend time with this audience. And you know, to look at the number of people attending in this session is unusual. Most people want to see where, you know, the next big thing coming. So I'm just delighted. I would like, Bharat, you go first, and then Romesh, you go second. Okay. Is any parting advice to people? What do you think? How, you know, legacy, whether it doesn't matter the size or amount as much as just the right kind of attitude as a human. If you can give a parting advice,
sure.
And after,
sure, I'll go, and then
sure.
And then Romesh. You know, I think frequently about the institute we attended and how privileged we are, but also the fact that the country made such an important strategic decision in investing in these institutions at a time when there were so many conflicting priorities this country had. And we paid such a fraction of what it cost the country to provide us this world-class education. Thinking about that always humbles me. And, you know, I think if you just think about that for a minute or two, it will empower you to engage actively in whatever way you can. I think we must give back. You know, we owe it to these institutions in this country who put so much trust in our capability and who invested in ours to give us this great education. So that's my advice.
Somebody mentioned America's cheapest import from India.
Right. So if I look at this in a bigger picture view of philanthropy, the amount that's gifted in the US to philanthropy is about $300 billion a year. It's a very large amount. The amount gifted in India is $5 billion a year. It's about 1%. It is less than pathetic that the level of philanthropy in India is so minuscule. It's not because there aren't a lot of rich industrialists in India. It's not that there aren't a lot of rich NRIs in the US or in the UK or in other geographies. But somewhere, the connection between their success and their social conscience is missing. And I think we, all of us at IIT, are different. We are different because very few of us came from rich families. Most of us came from either the middle class or from poor families. And the IIT was a gateway to freedom, right? Just look at all of you here. I'm guessing that only a few % of you, if that, came from rich families. So for the rest of us, this was a gateway to great lives in the US, the opportunity to create wealth, the opportunity to learn in the US or in India and go back to India and achieve success in India. If we aren't going to make that connection between the opportunities we've been given and our obligation to create opportunities for others, who the heck is going to do it? So the reason I wanted to come today, Shailesh, when you asked, even though I had another commitment tonight, was I felt this was by far more important. Because if we from the IIT aren't going to do it, nobody's going to do it. If nobody does it, India is going to be at 5 billion forever. So it's really up to you. It's up to Shailesh, Bharat, and me. It's up to all of us together to really get that 5 billion up to 50 billion. But it isn't even about the money. It's about us putting our passion and our effort and our commitment behind the money to achieve $10 of value for every dollar we put in, so that the philanthropic dollar amount may be only 10% of the US, but the philanthropic outcomes measured, as we said, would be the same as we achieve in the US. So that's what I'm counting on you to do today. So.
This is such a wonderful message. And we have now the new generation of successful entrepreneurs in India. There are IITians coming out of Powai Valley and elsewhere. And those of my friends who are here from India, please take this message back. These are the IITians, billionaires, who can take this 5 billion to 50 billion. So thank you very, very much. I'm really honored to both of you. And these two gentlemen on a single phone call agreed. They didn't ask me what time and what day. He said, as long as I'm in town, I'll show up. And he said, I'll show up anyway. So I want to personally thank you.
This is a great group. I'll show up for this group anytime.
Personally, really, really thank you. And I'm sure your message will go further. So please give a big hand to this wonderful gentleman.